Can you talk to me about the performers you've announced so far?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of performers we haven't been allowed to announce yet. A lot of performers these days like to be a surprise. So, and we like to surprise people too. We don't like to overhype things.
Yeah.
But there's some phenomenal superstars who've already been announced. Billie Eilish, I think, is the one I'm so excited about as well because she's from Los Angeles. She's such a superstar. It feels like she's been around for so many years. She's only 23.
Isn't that
yet
wild?
Here she is, as sort of like a Grammy legend already.
Yeah.
So she's got a very special performance that's very meaningful, and I'm excited about that. Chappell, Roan, and Sabrina Carpenter, two superstars of the last year, nominated across the board. We are very, very excited about the performances as they're shaping up. This week is a really sort of defining week of where we start seeing them on their feet and seeing them in action and making tweaks to them. But I think that it's going to be a very good year for music on the show this year.
Can you tease any of those surprises you guys have in store? What are you working on?
Well, there's a couple of people who are going to sing together that I think could be exciting.
Okay.
There's still two things that we're working on that we're trying to pull off, and it's it'll be a last minute thing if we can try and get this together. So there's a few things bizarrely that are still up in the air. There's a lot in our rundown that's still like, we hope we can get this thing, but let's see. Look, they are surprises, partly because I don't like to tempt fate, because as soon as I talk about them, you get a text going, so sorry, couldn't make this work. That's happened to me previous years. I've gone, there's something we're working on, it's going to be exciting. And then you get off the phone and they're like, yeah, sorry, couldn't make it work this year. Next year. Joni Mitchell's a good example of that. Joni Mitchell was on the show last year and was phenomenal, but actually we were talking to her about being on the year before. So you never know. So often you're working on things and then they come off at different times. But all I'd say is, although we are having our seatbelts on this week because we're moving so fast, I think it's going to be a really powerful and exceptional show this year, and I hope everybody feels that we do it right.
It sounds like anything could happen up until the day of the show on Sunday. So I got to ask you a question, Ben, on behalf of the Beehive. Beyonce has not performed at the Grammys since 2017. Is there hope that Beyonce will celebrate Cowboy Carter with a performance? Has she been asked?
I would always want Beyonce to be on the show, of course.
Yeah.
So, it would be beyond our wildest dreams. At the moment, there is no performance planned for Beyonce, sadly. But she's a huge story this year because that album is phenomenal. Nominated for Best Album, as well as Country Album, Record Song.
This ain't Texas. Ain't no hold'em. Lay our cards down, 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 down.
Last year was a special year because we got to see her win more Grammys than anyone's ever won ever. And so we have the Grammys and her have a really special relationship, and long may that continue, and hopefully one day we'll see her back on that stage.
I know you got a wild week. It's Grammys week.
Grammys week.
It's one of my favorites, so I am happy to know that they're proceeding and actually happening, but of course with a renewed purpose this year. Talk to me about why do you think it was important that the Grammys proceed as planned, of course now with the wildfire relief efforts in your mind?
Yeah, I was never in doubt that if it was safe to do the show, firstly, this hasn't been the easiest time to work in this industry over the last few years with pandemics and strikes and many other things. And there's actually about 6,500 people who take a wage in some way, local Los Angelinos, whether they be drivers or stage builders or choreographers or dancers or makeup artists or all these people who have been affected by what's happened. And actually the last thing they need is to lose a wage for a few weeks. So I was very insistent for them that we did the show. But more than that, I actually thought, what better thing than to be able to celebrate the city of Los Angeles and the spirit that we're really feeling in the city right now, to salute the first responders in such a significant way that we can do on the night, and also raise some really needed funds, because we've got a slot on CBS on Sunday night with some of the biggest stars in the world there in the room. And what better use of our time than actually doing some good?
I know this is the Grammys, but the way I see it is when the fire started happening, it was so amazing to see how quickly the LA community was showing up for each other. And I feel like the Grammys is a big part of that community.
Here's the thing I'd say. When you go through good times and bad, especially bad, let's talk about bad, because the wildfires have really affected all of us so much here in this city.
Yeah.
it's not movies that you're watching or TV shows apart from the news. You're not tuning into your local podcast to make you feel better. You're listening to music. You're listening to the albums. You're listening to the songs that affect you. In our highest times, in our lowest times, music is the consistent. Yes. So actually, I think that on Sunday, looking back at the year of music can actually bring a real emotional beauty to the situation that we're all experiencing right now. And I hope that we get that right and do it well and do everybody proud, because that's what we're hoping to do.
Was there a lot of pivoting as far as the preparation and the planning for this show after the fires?
There was a little pivoting, sure. We definitely, yes, things changed after the fires. We weren't making the same show that we were when we sat down on January the 3rd, when we came back from our break. So truthfully, when the fire started, probably on the 4th or 5th of January, around then, it was very clear that if the show was going to happen, it was going to focus quite a lot on what was going on in Los Angeles.
Sure.
So yes, I wouldn't say it pivoted so much as we were very aware of what's going on right now in this city and want to make sure that we reflect that. So I think we'll get the balance right. I hope we do. We know that it's a responsibility to do so, but I think it will be a really impactful evening.
Speaking of that balance, with Trevor Noah returning as host of the Grammys for the 5th year, I believe, right, in a row, what direction did you give him as far as like what kind of tone this show should have this year?
Well, Trevor's someone who I've loved working with. You don't need to tell Trevor much because he is that brilliant.
Sure.
He has an emotional awareness that a lot of hosts don't, so he really understands what people are going through. He's also super smart, and that really helps. And at the same time, he's very, very funny. And finally, he loves music. He's a super fan. So therefore, actually just being in that room for him, you can see the boyish enthusiasm and excitement that he has for the show. Yeah. So I think he's going to get the tone exactly right on this year when it really matters.
Lastly, you know, the Grammy Awards always takes the time, right, to remember the ones we lost in the past year. I know, of course, you had a close relationship with Liam Payne. Can you share if there might be some plan for a tribute for Liam or One Direction?
Yeah, it's a very difficult time. Losing Liam was very, very tough, no doubt about it. He was the most beautiful, wonderful boy and loved him very, very much. There isn't a One Direction performance. No, there isn't. He is, of course, in our in memoriam, without question. And actually, that's a very sad thing for me when you're going through sort of the rehearsals and you're seeing the clips and a guy who is literally sat in this office 4 weeks before that tragedy happened. Seeing him on that screen is not something I would ever have imagined would be the case. And so, yeah, it's extra sad this year for many people, not just me, of course, who love Liam. But yeah, that will be seeing him on that screen will be a very sad moment, no question.